In other news, a bipartisan group of American lawmakers has asked the Biden administration to punish South Africa for what it sees as the country's support of Russia's conflict with Ukraine. The request, made in a letter sent last week, seeks to have a major trade conference scheduled to be held in South Africa this year moved to another country. The letter centers on an annual forum for the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA. The act provides duty-free access to the U.S. trade market for about 3 dozen African nations. South Africa is its biggest beneficiary, exporting about $3 billion worth of goods to the U.S. through the AGOA in 2022 alone. Now, this is the first concrete effort at retaliation by members of the U.S. government over the growing perception of South Africa's relationship with Russia that threatens America's interest. Let's get more of this. Sumitra Naidu is in Johannesburg and joins us. Sumitra, welcome to the program. Thank you for speaking with us. Sumitra, how has the government responded to American lawmakers asking the Biden administration to punish South Africa by moving a major trade conference scheduled to be held in South Africa this year to another country? And what would be the impact?
Well, Richard, we haven't had any official response from South African officials as yet. This letter was not addressed to South Africa. It was drafted by U.S. lawmakers and addressed to the U.S. Secretary of State. And of course, we know about this letter because the New York Times is in possession of that letter. And this is how we know that there are plans to move this trade meeting to another country. Obviously, once this letter is checked out, the legitimacy of this letter, South African officials, of course, will make some sort of announcement. But I think what's, when we look at this, letter and look at what's in this letter, it all boils down to trade between South Africa and the U.S. and, of course, as you stated, the African Growth and Opportunity Act. And really, it's over the concerns, the U.S. concerns that it has over South Africa's relationship with Russia. So AGOA is really at stake. This is really, really important for South Africa. This act came into play around 2000 during George W. Bush's time, and it really allows for thousands of goods from Southern Africa to be exported to the U.S. duty-free. So 25% of total exports to the U.S. is done under AGOA from South Africa, and these are mostly cars and agricultural products. It is significant for South Africa. Now, the United States is South Africa's biggest export market after China. It is, as I said, significant. It is very important. And what's important to note in this letter, it's not only that the AGOA Trade Forum must be moved from South Africa this year to another country. It's also questioning South Africa's eligibility to benefit from this trade act. So essentially asking that South Africa be taken out of this trade act. It will lose all of these benefits, and that, I think, will be detrimental to South Africa. As I said, this act has been in play for over 2 decades. It is really important for the South African economy. Richard?
Well, clearly a lot at stake for the South African government here. Sumitra, how has the government reacted to the alleged support for Russia?
Well, the U.S. government is clearly frustrated with South Africa's non-aligned position with Russia, purely because to the U.S., South Africa doesn't necessarily play out a non-aligned position. There have been rumblings about a strained relationship between South Africa and the U.S. And then, of course, we saw an outburst from the U.S. Ambassador Ruben Brigetti accusing South Africa of supplying arms to Russia. He accused South Africa of sending these arms on a Russian ship that came into South Africa in December last year. Now, that case is still under investigation by South African authorities. There was a Russian ship docked in South Africa. It did come through to the Navy in December last year, but nobody seems to know what exactly was on the chip and whether anything left on that chip. So that's still under investigation. The ambassador, Ruben Brigitte, of course, did apologize for his statements, but did not withdraw those allegations. The Minister of International Affairs said South Africa and the US still enjoy good relations. The ambassador echoed the same sentiment, but there does seem to be a lot more going on in terms of this relationship between the US and South Africa, definitely strained over this issue.